Aubrey, tell me the truth. What do you enjoy doing writing task one, like sample essays? Do you love IELTS writing
No.
task one?
Oh my gosh. No, they're the worst. I'm so sorry. I apologize on behalf of IELTS everywhere that any of you are doing academic and have to write task one essays because they're the worst. And you're not going to have to write them in the future. I hope. It's
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, general training task one is awesome. I can write fake letters all day, coming up with like creative details and characters and experiences. General training task one is rad. But academic task one, okay, just real fast in case you are just beginning your IELTS journey. What are the possible question types of academic task one?
You're going to be seeing graphs or charts, maybe pie charts for one possibility. And then you have to choose the most important information and compare it and write about it. The other possibility is like a process diagram describing a process of the creation of something, right? And the tricky thing is you probably haven't seen a lot of graphs like that. Or if you have, you're just glancing at it to kind of figure out what it is. You're not having to compare and really dive into describing this information. So it's sort of unfamiliar skills that you need and not very fun at all.
I know numbers are boring. Well, I mean, obviously, like I love words more than numbers. So just, that's my
there
brain.
May be people out there who don't mind this, that are like,
I know
this is fun. Let's describe these numbers.
Might enjoy it. I mean, more power to you if that's the case. So yeah, real fast before we get to this excellent task one question, it'll really clear up a lot for you guys today. Even though the possibilities for task one questions seem disconnected, right? We got maps, we got nature diagrams, we got change over time line graphs, we got static pie charts and tables. The strategies for writing about these, for what information to include, how to organize the information, what sentence structures to use, what vocabulary to use, all of that stuff is the same, right? And we teach you all about this in our writing course, guys. If writing is the only thing holding you back, if like listening, reading, speaking, that's all great. But writing is the biggest headache. Guys, check out our 3 Keys Writing Only course. It's real easy to remember, allearsenglish.com/writing only. And there you go. So let's read this question and we'll build this out for you guys.
Okay, so this question comes from one of our 3 Keys students. It was posted in the 3 Keys Facebook group where students are able to post questions and we answer them. Kyoko, hello. And they wrote, in writing task one, if there are, for example, 5 sets of information, like 5 different industries or something like that, and if 3 of them don't contain any important references to mention, I don't think they do, there's no need to mention them at all and just write about the other 2? ? This is a really good question.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Yeah. Task one is horrible because it seems logical and a reasonable assumption that if 3 of these things don't seem to be important at all, then don't put them in your essay. Like, why write about something that's not important? When we say don't include important information, we don't mean categories. We mean numbers. Don't include numbers that are not interesting or not important. In order to get even a 6 for task, you need to touch base with all of the information provided, right? So it's like we have to mention all 5 categories, but then only give the most important numbers for each category. So we came up with a little example chart. So hopefully this can be clearer to you guys. And we're going to tell you what numbers you need to include if it's a static graph or a change over time graph.
Exactly. So we were thinking about the 5 biggest industries in Portland, and we just threw out some random industries. This is totally by no means accurate. Don't hold us to this. And we're first going to talk about change over time graphs. This is where you're seeing dates and how information changed over a period of time. So you see a few different dates and numbers for these different industries on those dates, right?
So it's probably a line graph, right? And then you just have 5 lines.
Exactly, right? Should look fairly straightforward, hopefully. Yeah. So for example, it might show net sales and how the sales changed over time. So we're going to throw out the industries: timber, auto parts, toys, frozen food, and bicycles. So for change over time, you're looking at what are the biggest increases and decreases? Where did this information change the most?
Exactly. So really just 4 things you need to include for every single line on that graph. Like, going back to Kyoko's question, if I see 5 lines on the graph and 3 of them are just kind of straggling in the middle, they don't seem important. Maybe I'm only going to describe like the top line and the bottom line. Oh, that would be such a mistake. You would get maybe a 5, maybe a 4 for task if you did that. Like, that would be terrible, guys. So I need to mention all 5 lines. Now, don't think I have to give tons of numbers for each line. So when we say the key numbers are beginning, end, highest, lowest, that doesn't mean you're giving 4 numbers for each line, because usually a line will start at the lowest point and it will end at the highest point. So you only have to give 2 numbers in that case, right? So really you're not giving tons of numbers for each line, but those are the key numbers you have to include in your essay. If you're going to get even a 6 or higher for task, guys, the beginning numbers, the end numbers, the highest and the lowest for each line.
Yes. And then if you have a huge increase of something and then it decreases drastically, these really important changes, that's significant, right? If you see something really obvious and big in the chart, you definitely want to include that as well, right?
Yeah.
In your overall trend, it's going to be clear, what are the overall changes? And that has to be included in your body paragraphs too.
Totally. That's a good point. So besides those 4 key numbers that will definitely be there, if there is something incredibly interesting, like, the most enormous change, and you could easily know this just if you glance at a graph, right? Just glance at it. What do you notice first? What jumps out at you, right? If something jumps out, that's important. Put it in your essay.
Yes, exactly. All right. So now let's talk about the same information, but that could be presented very differently in a static chart, right?
Yeah.
So if this is showing, for example, number of units produced in 2021, we're seeing like a snapshot, one point in time, and that's looking very different, right? We're seeing highest and lowest numbers instead of how information changed over time.
Yeah, exactly. So because the information is presented differently, the key numbers are different. So in this case, the image you see will most likely be a table. We'll have the 5 industries on the top. Again, timber, auto parts, toys, frozen food, and bicycles. I would love for someone to recreate these graphs and send them to us. And then maybe you have the types of numbers on the side, right? So we have number of units produced, profit, number of employees. This is a classic static table that looks so confusing when you first look at it, because you're like, there's so many numbers. How do I organize this? What do I do in my essay? So here's the key, guys. Choose the easiest path. If we have 5 industries along the top and we have 3 categories along the side, right? Number of units, profit, number of employees. Organize it by those 3 categories, because most likely, guys, it'll be obvious where to draw that line, where to separate them into groups of information. Like the number of units produced and profit, that should probably go together in one paragraph. And employees, not super connected, this will be in its own paragraph. So now we have 2 groups of information, right? Decide those 2 groups first. And then we circle the most important numbers for each group. So static, what are the most important numbers, Aubrey?
Highest. Second highest is often needs to be included, and then lowest, right? And this is for each group of information, right? Just because some are maybe middle of the road, we still need to hear what is the highest and lowest for those as well.
Exactly. And so you circle highest, second highest, lowest. Now, if you glance at what you circled and you notice, you're like, oh my gosh, no numbers are circled for bicycles and frozen food. You still need to mention those in your essay, guys. Don't give any numbers for them, but as maybe a conclusion or maybe in the introduction, I would put it as a conclusion, actually. I would say, as to the other 2 industries of frozen food and bicycles, all of their numbers fell in the middle, or were average as compared to the other groups, or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Right. That's the key, is which numbers can you leave out? The examiner does not want to see every single number on the chart in there.
Right.
They need to see that you can recognize what's most important here, what needs to be included. And those middle of the road numbers, leave them out, but definitely mention all of the categories.
Last word on this, guys. If you put in too many numbers, you get a 5 for task. Just automatic. That's what happens. So yes, guys, today's question is very important. If you want the complete system of strategies, you can tell we know what we're talking about for the writing exam, guys. Check out our 3 Keys writing course. Go to allearsenglish.com/writing only. All right, awesome. Aubrey, thanks. This was a chock-a-block
Chock-a-block
episode. That's like a British term, I think. Chock-a-block.
I love that. Chock-a-block full. I know. This was really fun. Even though we don't love writing task 1 essays, we do know how to write them.
You gotta do it.
We want to make it easier for you guys, for sure.
Exactly. All right, Aubrey, I'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.